When we are subtracting mixed numbers, we use the same stacking process as when we were adding mixed numbers or adding just regular fractions, but we have a few more steps along the way, and we have to be super systematic about this. We are always going to subtract those fractional parts first, the top fraction minus the bottom fraction, because there's always a very specific order when it comes to subtracting. So let's use this for some of these examples. We want to start by stacking the fractions. So we're going to have 3 4/5 minus 1 2/5. Just like before, the fractional parts are stacked, the whole numbers are stacked as well. For this specific problem, we already have common denominators, so we don't have to create them. We don't have to rewrite anything over here to create a common denominator because they are already common denominators. So we're going to go to the next step. And we're going to subtract the fractional parts first, top minus the bottom. So 4 minus 2 gives us 2. Denominator stays the same. And then we'll subtract the whole. 3 minus 1 gives us 2. Okay, we've subtracted the whole numbers. Then check to see if we can simplify, which in this case, 2/5 cannot be simplified. So 2 2/5 is our answer. We're going to use this process every single time. So if we look at this next one, 7 1/2, it's the first one listed. It has to go on top, minus 3 2/7. This time we don't have common denominators, so we need to create common denominators. A common denominator between 2 and 7 is going to be 14. So we write that right away. 2 times 7 would give us 14. So we're going to multiply by 7 in the numerator and denominator and carry the whole number over. Super important. Same process for the denominator. 7 times 2 gives us 14. So we have to multiply the numerator by 2 and carry the whole number over. Remembering we're subtracting, 7 minus 4, top minus bottom gives us 3. Denominator stays the same. 7 minus 3 gives us 4. We subtracted fractional parts, then we subtracted the whole numbers, simplify, which in this case 3/14 cannot be simplified. Many of your fractions will need to be simplified. If we look at the next one, 2 2/3, starting by stacking the fractions. We don't have common denominators, so we have to create them between the 3 and the 6. If we were to multiply them together, which we could, we would get 18. However, 3 times 2 gives us 6, so 6 would be the best common denominator for this one. So we wouldn't have to change that bottom mixed number. So instead it'll stay 1 1/6. For this top fraction, 3 to 6, we would need to multiply by 2. Notice how we're only multiplying the fractional part. The whole number will remain the same, and the new numerator, instead of 2/3, will now be 4/6. We have common denominators, now we need to subtract those fractional parts, top minus the bottom, so 4 minus 1 gives us 3/6. Then we can subtract the whole numbers, 2 minus 1 is 1, and then check to see if we can simplify. 3/6, they can both be divided by 3, which will give us 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2, so now we have 1 1/2 instead as our final answer. Even when we have bigger numbers like you see here, the process is still the same. The process still works. We start by stacking our fractions, 6 1/2 minus 3 1/3. Then we check for common denominators, which in this case we don't have and need to create. 2 times 3 gives us 6. To get from 2 to 6, we would need to multiply by 3. That needs to match. Our new numerator becomes 3. Carry over that whole number, keeping in mind it's subtraction. 3 multiplied by 2 gives us 6. So we have to multiply by 2 in the numerator and carry over that nice whole number and then subtract. Fractional parts first. So 3 minus 2, 3 is big enough so we can simplify, or so we can subtract, giving us 1/6. 6 minus 3 is 3. Fractional parts, then whole numbers, then check to see if we can simplify. 1/6 is in simplest form. So 3 and 1/6 is our answer. 13 and 5/7 minus 4 and 3/5. We don't have common denominators, so we need to create them. I'm going to start this time by writing those whole numbers there to make sure that we have enough space and so we remember to write them. Between the 5 and the 7, if we multiply them together, we would get 35. So 35 can be our common denominator. 7 multiplied by 5 gave us the 35, so we have to multiply by 5. In the bottom fraction, we're multiplying by 7. And again, always subtracting the fractional parts first. 25 minus 21 gives us 4 out of 35. 13 minus 4 gives us 9. Then check to see if we can simplify if necessary. An even number, 4 can be divided by 2 and 4. But in this case, 35 is an odd number, so it cannot be divided by 2, and it cannot be divided by 4. So this is our answer. Last example. We have 9 and 7/9 minus 8 and 4/6. No common denominator, so we need to create them. In this case, if we multiply them together, 9 times 6 is 54. So 54 will be our common denominator. We had to multiply 9 by 6 to get 54, so we're going to do the same, giving us 42. 6 would have to be multiplied by 9, so we're going to multiply the numerator by 9, giving us 36. And then we are going to subtract, starting with the fractional parts. 42 minus 36. Again, you can always show that off to the side, right next to each other. We don't have to do that in our head. 42 minus 36, we will need to borrow. So now we have 12 minus 6, which is 6. 3 minus 3 is 0. So we have 6 left over out of the same common denominator, which is 54. 9 minus 8 is 1. Always check to see if we can simplify, which because of the denominators we've chosen for each of these, we haven't had to simplify as much. However, you always need to check to see if you can simplify, because if you aren't using the least common denominators, and even if you do, you still may need to simplify. In this case, we have 2 even numbers, the easiest thing to spot, so we're going to divide both of them by 2. The whole number stays the same. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 54 divided by 2, always okay to show that off to the side. 54 divided by 2, using long division, 2 goes into 5 twice. Bring down that 4, 2 goes into 14 7 times, so the 7 goes directly above the 4 we just brought down. And then 27 can be placed there. Now you'll notice that 3 and 27, 3 can go perfectly into 27. So we're going to simplify again, dividing them by 3. The whole number stays the same, remaining a 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. So this would be our final answer. You can also look up here and see that 6 and 54 are both divisible by 6. So if we would have divided both of them by 6, 6 divided by 6 is 1, 54 divided by 6 is 9, and that would have been a direct simplification. However, breaking it down in multiple steps is okay. Reviewing our steps. Always stack our fractions so that we can keep organized our whole numbers and our fractional parts. We need to have a common denominator, so for many we need to show how we're getting our common denominators to make sure that we are treating each fractional part equally. Then we subtract the fractional part first, always top minus bottom, then subtract the whole numbers and simplify at the very, very end.